you doing, everyone? Happy Saturday. I'm coming to you from Marblehead, Massachusetts in the United States. Honored to be taking part of ProductCamp over there. And let's get to the presentation. I run a company called WickedReports, and we're in a unique position where we have tracked over $1.5 billion in sales from small businesses for the sole purpose of trying to increase their marketing return on investment. And we are an impartial judge in that we're not trying to say any one particular type of marketing is more important than the other. We're trying to find out which is most important for the different small businesses that we try to help. And in doing that, in analyzing this $1.5 billion, a lot of interesting things came to light, in my opinion, that aren't talked about a lot, but are very important if you're going to try to scale your marketing spend using common ad platforms. And so I would like to tell you what I learned, because I think it'll be helpful, and that's the purpose of the presentation today. This slide will be the last slide at the end, so if you don't need to take notes, you can get the slides from me by going here or texting, or I'll send them along to Lena at ProductCamp and she can share them with you. So the father of advertising is John Wanamaker, and his pain point back then, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And this is still a pain for a lot of marketers now. And the question is, we have a lot of technology. Why can't we tell where our advertising is wasted or where it's working? And there are challenges. Because all you're trying to do is figure out, how can I grow faster? But it's not as simple as running more ads and then you make more money. Because when we talk to the small business marketers using online, such as Facebook or AdWords, the general story is that when they first started using Facebook or AdWords, it was great. They started acquiring more customers. The more they spent, the more they grew. But then there comes a time when you plateau pretty quickly. And if you increase your spending online, it doesn't increase your marketing growth. So if you get frustrated and you reduce your spending, then all of a sudden your revenues drop. So you know that somewhere it's working, but you can't figure out how, and you can't increase your growth, and that's a frustrating problem to have. And so that's what we're trying to solve. Now, most platforms out there leave people confused and unsatisfied with their data. People go in and they see pretty pie charts or bar charts or something that looks gorgeous to look at, but it doesn't give them any meaning or any way to actually grow the business. And part of that is because a lot of metrics out there and a lot of tracking, particularly in Facebook or in AdWords or in your email platform, they all show you the last click of your customers, if you even set that up. And the problem is you don't find new customers based on the last click of your old customers. Because for someone to become a customer, it generally takes some time. But the trouble is the reports are all focused on the very last thing that happened. And so that last thing, you can't go back in a time machine and figure out what did they first do, at least not in the reports that you use from either Facebook or AdWords. So the way we've been taught to use the data has been great for a bunch of data scientists looking at what was the last click that occurred. And that's not what happens anymore. People are distracted. They need to warm up to a brand, particularly if it's a small niche new business advertising online. There's a journey they have to take to become a customer. The world doesn't need a prettier pie chart. It needs better information. And so what we've realized is that marketers just want to use data to grow faster. I'm a data person. I love being in numbers all the time, but that's not, everyone's different. And marketers are generally, if you're really good at marketing, that talent you have for marketing may not translate to a talent for data. And so how do we make data that's going to help you grow faster? So I looked at this flood of data that no one was acting on. In particular, 1.5 billion in transactions, 400 million in Facebook ad spend, 142 million in clicks tracked, a lot of stuff here. And there were three really extreme lessons that I learned that people aren't normally aware of. And if you are, it's going to help you grow your business, hopefully easier and faster. The first one is the amount of time it takes a new lead to buy. After looking at 1.5 billion in sales, and then looking at when was the first order by that customer, and how far back did they first click on some marketing, the average time was 43 days. And so that means 750 million in US of those sales occurred longer than 43 days. So there's a lot longer sales cycle than people realize. And this matters because if you're in your AdWords or Facebook account and you see that a particular ad is saying that it made a sale, and then you want to spend more money there to try and attract more customers, it might not work, because depending on how long ago this was between they saw that ad and made their order, there could have been a lot of other interactions that occurred. And that causes, a lot of frustration, because you see Facebook shows that you've made a sale and you want to obviously make more of them, but it doesn't account for these 43 days. And so we have to figure out where in this 43 days is most important for us to worry about, so that we can speed up this time and ultimately get more of those first clicks on advertising to turn into orders. So that was the first big lesson. It was shocking to me that it took 43 days. The second thing is older leads don't act like new leads. Most people have an email marketing list, and they're trying to grow that list, and they're trying to grow the list because they figure as they get more email subscribers, some of those people are going to become customers. And what we found, this is a fancy, variance and revenue count, but the general lesson is that there's a massive difference between what makes an older lead buy versus a new lead buy. And if you think about it, it's a lot like, I like to use the analogy of dating. Because I'm married with 3 kids, and if I'm going to ask my wife to go out to dinner or go on a date, I'm generally just going to text her, hey, do you want to go out at this time? Or I'm just going to, there's maybe not going to be a lot of planning involved. But if you're dating someone for the very first time and you're going to ask them out, it's a really big deal to ask someone on your very first date. You don't know if they're going to say yes, and you've got to act much differently, obviously, on a first date than you do if it's someone that you've been in a long relationship with, or you're married, or heaven forbid, divorced. The point being, in real life, we act different once we're more familiar with people. Well, online, people act differently when they're more familiar with brands. And the data really spoke to that there's almost a 3,000% difference in the type of actions or things that make familiar people buy versus unfamiliar people buy. And so your marketing has to take that into account. When you're advertising on Facebook, you need to make sure if you're writing a message that's just a brand new people that you want to become customers, you've got to segment so that you're only talking to brand new people and talk to them differently than the people that have been on your email list for a while. And I think that's something that people kind of get lost in Facebook or in AdWords, and they just start talking the same way to all of them. And the data backs up that you really should take the time to talk to them differently and make sure you're doing so. The third one was something I had an inkling, but didn't realize the dramatic effect of the wildly different customer lifetime values. Everyone's got those great customers and not so great customers. But what we found was the top 1% of your customers are worth 30 times the bottom 50%. To put that in numbers, let's say you had 1,000 customers, it'd mean your top 10 customers are worth 30 times more than your bottom 500 customers. That's a very dramatic difference. And so when you're you're always focused on, finding more new leads that buy, and that's a very important thing to do. But if you can actually expand the amount of revenue you can get from your existing customers, there's a lot of money to be made there. So it's something to really take into account. So these are what I call the 3 new truths. Maybe they were truths all along and I was just aware of them now, thanks to the data, but they're new to me and hopefully to some of you out there. New leads take time to buy. Old leads don't act like new leads, and customers have wildly different lifetime values. So, given that information, if you want to go start to try talking to them differently, the first thing you need to do is track what you're doing, because otherwise there's no way to iteratively improve on what you're doing unless you have a baseline of how you're actually doing. So I want to show you a customer here. She's a real customer from one of our customers at WickedReports. Her name's, we're going to call her Lorraine. She's worth $4,000 over this time frame that we're looking at. And so the idea for a small business, you know, everything's relative, but an idea for this business is, can I find 1,000 Lorraines? Because she's one of my top 10 customers. And if I can find 1,000 people like her, I've grown my business $4 million. And this business that I'm talking about is only a $2 million business. So they're trying to triple their business. There's tons of things that you can see and learn on the internet about marketing. Well, taking what I've just mentioned about the wildly different lifetime values, it makes sense to maybe just to try to model your marketing funnel and campaigns based on what works best on your best customers. So ideally, you'll attract more of the same. So the first thing we got to do is get the right data. Well, when you go to track, and this is Lorraine's actual marketing funnel, you see there's a lot of things going on here. There's Facebook ads, there's AdWords, there's emails, and there's a whole, I call it spray and pray. There's a lot of things going on, and occasionally an order will pop up, and it's really hard to figure out. So the first thing people normally do is go to Facebook and say, hey, out of all this, what does Facebook think worked? Well, Facebook's a great marketing tool, fantastic, but their tracking is a little too optimistic and gives a little too much credit to Facebook. Because see, what it's done here, if he was just to look at how Facebook affected this particular, these purchases, you'll see like right here, if you can see my pointer, there's this big shadow cast. And that's because she last viewed this free shipping offer on Facebook. Then these other things occurred that Facebook doesn't know about, and then there was an order. Same thing over here. And so Facebook might have been valuable or might not have. But when you try to spend more based on this Facebook measurement saying, hey, we just made a sale, it generally won't work that well because Facebook is ignoring these key things that happened after the Facebook ad before this nice $349 order. In other cases, you see right here, this particular ad was right next to this point in time where the contact was created. So it's more likely that Facebook had a higher impact on the contact joining the email list. So we can trust this better. But Facebook doesn't differentiate that, so it's challenging. So the next thing you do is you go to AdWords. AdWords does the same thing as Facebook. They do a 30-day view period, which means you can scroll by an ad on a website, don't click on it, maybe don't even see it in your vision, you know, maybe it's just off to the side while you're reading an article somewhere. But then 28 days later, you buy something, AdWords will tell you, hey, look, I just made you a sale. Now, they're not always trying to do that. Sometimes it really is valuable and it really did happen the day before the sale, but they don't differentiate that. And if you look at the data and you're not aware of it, then you start spending based on your AdWords report results and find you're not scaling based on your spend, and this is why. So what I'd like you to consider doing is focusing on just certain points. I call them ROI leverage points. And I know we only have 90 seconds left, so I'm going to make it, I think, which is the marketing that's closest to orders or closest to contacts joining your email list or whatever is making your existing leads rejoin your list. Because it's not that the other points aren't also important, but these are more important. And when you spend here, we have found that people are more likely to grow their business based on all the revenue that we've tracked in the past. Additionally, those points map directly to specific questions you need to answer to grow your business. Particularly this one, what finds new leads that buy? Everybody wants more new leads that buy. And if you need to know, how did I first get them on my email list? So then when they become great lifetime customers, great customers with high value over time, then you need to be able to go back and say, hey, I know exactly what offer and what targeting I used to get this great customer back in the past, so you can then go spend there again to attract more of them. So that's what I have time for in 15 minutes, it looks like. Whoop. So I'm just going to scroll down to the end here. So if you want, I have a recorded presentation that's similar that you can find here. I don't know if this text is going to work in Russia. My apologies. I don't know if it's international or not. So maybe just go to the website if you need the rest of the presentation. And with that, I will, I don't know if my sharing's off or not. Stop sharing. Okay. I know I had to go really fast there. There's even more around how to act on data. But from a tracking perspective, you know, we have, you know, about 1,500 users, and this is what makes them grow, is focusing on these ROI leverage points, if you will. So any questions, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for your time.
Да, я слушаю.
Лен, скажи, пожалуйста, что мы благодарны очень, что у нас нет вопросов.
Well, Scott, thank you a lot for your presentation. There are no questions. It was very simple for audience, and that's why it's okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good Saturday. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.